This is Jamie Dyer welcoming you to another edition of the Quo-Cast. Can you believe that it has been 45 years since the release of the Status Quo single, Whatever You Want? It was released in September 1979. Did you buy it on first release? Were you not keen? Have you grown to love it? I think people are in many different camps. Like the album, of which also has the same title that was released in October 79, the track was produced by Pip Williams with John Eden acting as engineer. And it's probably one of their most, there are movements in Quo songs, like in the classical sense, but with Whatever You Want, there are movements. It is very kind of classically based, isn't it? Because you've got that intro that's got different kind of segments in it. You know, possibly, I'm going to be saying this a lot, their longest intro on record, I would say. I mean, Rick Parfitt's intro with that low D string, and then the sort of chugging that's in there, that noise. I always wondered how they got that extra extended note with the dun 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 dun. I always wondered how that was achieved. Like, is that a second note? Is that the same string? Like, you know, as a kid, you didn't know. Like, you couldn't look this stuff up. Obviously, that had been experimented, that particular chugging and stuff had been experimented a year before in the If You Can't Stand the Heat album with the track Oh What a Night. It's kind of got a similar vibe about it. But Whatever You Want, written by Andy Bown with Rick Parfitt, both credited on the single, it is so simple in some ways, isn't it? Like, it's such a simple like riff that it eventually goes into that da 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 da, like so simple and yet brilliant at the same time, and pure Quo, I would argue, in the commercial era. Finally found their sound after experimenting with disco and other forms of rock on the previous album and trying to sound more American, I guess, on their album in 1977. They seem to have found it in 79, that sort of mixture between what they had been doing in their hard rock, proper hard rock era, and then this new era that they found themselves on. And yeah, it did extremely well throughout Europe and the UK, as I mentioned. And it's possibly one of Quo's most remembered songs, along with Down Down and Rocking All Over the World. It was supposed to be played at Live Aid, I think. I think they played it in a sound check and for some reason opted for Don't Waste My Time, because rocking was an absolute certainty. And Caroline, obviously, again, really big favourite, had opened Quo's gigs for many years, and so with that iconic intro, and it's just rock and roll personified. So Whatever You Want perhaps could have, you know, sat alongside them, but something tells me that maybe with rehearsals and stuff, Don't Waste My Time was just easier to slot in with the amount of time that they had left. Maybe there was like 2 or 3 songs. I'd have to ask Francis or Andy at some point, or maybe even Pete Kircher. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. And the thing with Whatever You Want is it's kind of had many lives, hasn't it? Because it came out as a single and it's been a live staple for many years. You can't end a Quo concert without Whatever You Want, unless you're the Frantic Four in 2013, 14, then it's okay. So it is a staple, and it's been used in commercials, advertisements. It was the song they used in the Argos commercial for a while. They also had the song used in a TV show called Whatever You Want in the late 90s, where Michael Underwood first found fame. That's my particular memory of that show. And then about 10 years after that, and after many different uses, throughout the world, and cover versions as well. Clout covered it as the B-side to one of their singles in the early 80s, I think, which is well worth a listen. Just rambling around the houses to find a way to bridge into that Scooter remix of the track, where I feel like they might have used the original multi-tracks for that. I will talk about the Scooter collaboration in more detail in another video, but it is kind of important to talk about it in a video about the legacy of Whatever You Want, because in 2008, a band which wouldn't normally, they're not normally talked about Scooter in the same breath as Quo, because completely different genre, and yet they saw something in Whatever You Want. I believe Scooter are quite the Quo fans. Hi, if you're watching or listening. And that thing was very divisive, extremely. The way that they remixed it, the kind of way they used that jump rhythm in it. But I thought it worked quite well, and it made me tear up seeing the video that kind of harkened after Run DMC and Aerosmith. It was kind of that same idea, and another opportunity for Quo to be cool, if you will. That is something I will talk about in more detail another day, but do let me know what you thought of that collaboration. I thought that they used the best elements of the original multitracks and tried to bring it up to date. And certainly that is a collaboration I never thought would happen. We also have the acoustic version of Whatever You Want as well, because again, the thing with Quo's material is you can seemingly put it into any genre you like and it still works in some way. And I remember the way they did it was sort of really stripped back. They had sort of an orchestra, wasn't it? Like a little mini string orchestra. And I remember reading on Twitter some comments as the Roundhouse gig was going out, and they said that's the folkiest version of Whatever You Want I've ever heard, which I think of as a great compliment, that this song that was written, way back in the 70s by Andy Bown and Rick Parfitt, and it still had legs in another genre, in another way, which, again, I shall talk about Acoustic at some point. Acoustic tried to reinvent things along with your strum-alongs, your Rocking All Over the Worlds and your Paper Planes and stuff. It did try and change things round, and Whatever You Want was one of those things. Are you a fan of that version? Do get in contact. I'd love to hear your opinions. And just so you know, opinions may be used in a future episode. So let's round out. Let's talk about the video of Whatever You Want, where I feel like on the Excess All Areas DVD, there's a commentary with Rick and Francis talking about the video as it's playing. And they have the kind of multi-screen, don't they, of all the different things and the way that it moves. Very clever for 1979. And I feel like they say this, that like it looked amazing then, but it kind of looks a bit naff now, I guess. It kind of turns into a cue, doesn't it? But the video itself, I mean, this is in the early days of like promo videos being promo videos. They'd already made Runaway and Who Asked You, and obviously the stuff in the mid-70s was Rain, etc. And this is an attempt, I guess, to do more than just a filmed performance, as the first two I mentioned seemingly had been. And Living on an Island as well is of a similar vein. What do you think of the Whatever You Want video? I think Rick looks really cool in that, if I'm being honest with you. Do you think that the single itself is one of the best Quo singles out there? I mean, it got to number 4 in the charts. It's just got a great rhythm. It's still played on gold radio stations and oldies and all kinds of things. It's still a firm favorite. Is it a favorite with you? Let me know, and I'll see you again for another episode of the Quo-Cast.